Welcome, everybody. This is the Entrepreneurship track, and I'm sure you were in the sessions this morning and enjoyed the discussion about education in Africa, how we have to really chart one goal for the improvement of education on the continent. I want to read something that I found when I was looking for just new concepts on how we should approach education on the continent. And this said that according to the African Development Bank, 22% of Africa's working age population are starting businesses. It's the highest entrepreneurship rate in the world. While the job creation potential is promising, it is a far cry from the demands. Africa will need 122 million new jobs by 2022. 122 million new jobs by 2022. So this was a few years ago, but 2022 is just a year away. It is very clear that the way we do education on the continent does not necessarily support entrepreneurship, and therefore we need to be very intentional about how we do entrepreneurship, very intentional about how we support young people to start businesses as higher education institutions. So you heard this earlier, that there are going to be small grants provided to universities that are successful with the applications, so that the session today is not just come and learn and share session, but it's a come and learn and share and also plan and get some support to do and implement some small programs that you might develop listening to other people. Today, our session is in collaboration with the Center for Social Innovations, and we are going to start with two pairs of presentations. The first pair will be in a few minutes, and then the next pair will follow. To provide a bit more details, we'll have Dr. Sena Agyepong from Ashesi, and then also Dr. George Njenga, Executive Dean, Strathmore Business School, in the first pair. And then we have Dr. Henrietta Onwuegbuzie, Director of MBA Programs, Lagos Business School, Pan-Atlantic University, and Dr. Hala Barakat, Director at the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, American University in Cairo. Do the second pair for us. Welcome, Dr. Njenga. Please take it away.
Okay. So I think you're looking at how to develop institutions, how to develop great institutions that have an entrepreneurship spirit. And that's how I, as the founding dean of Strathmore University Business School, and also as the first registrar finance of the university, designed the university for. So it's always good to think of what is the spirit that drives the university. Okay, so although the business school was started as such in 2005, the initial seedling of the university was 1961 as an A-level college. And I'll tell you why that's important. That's important because in 1961, Kenya did not have its independence. And therefore, we were segregated in a number of areas of the economy, education included. 90% of the country was segregated according to racial lines, the European, the Asian, and the African. Of course, as usual, it was a sort of apartheid system, similar to the one of South Africa. But in 1960, the founders of the college, then a group of young men and women, more of young men, because it initially started as men, felt they cannot drive any institution that is not based on justice. And therefore, they evoked the law of the Education Act in Kenya then in 1960, and were finally granted a license to become the first multiracial school uniting Africans, Asians, and Europeans. And you will find out that there are three hats in the coat of arms of the university. The three hats at the top there, I hope you can see them, were the first entrepreneurial principle of the university. We have in our DNA that our school encloses all people. And the first principle is that all people are united as one in development in the service of the university. So there were no Africans that could go to the university then, because most of them were not at that level of education. Most of them had stopped at the second year of secondary school and below. So the only way to get some Africans into a university was to start an A-level college. And therefore, the university that was supposed to have been started in 1961 by the founders, was shelved. They had to start with an A-level college of the three races. Later on, in 1992, when we united two institutions with a similar culture, a male and a female based, two male and female based institutions, we formed what is now Strathmore University. That was in 1992. Then still a college, but now a college of entrepreneurship, a college of business, accounting and finance and IT. By the time we got our accreditation as a university, that was in 2002, interim certificate, and then 2008 as the university. And this is what we said the university was: a leading entrepreneurial university that promotes integration in professional development, in industry, in research, and of its own self must always change according to the needs of the market. And that is what we have built up. When I started the business school in 2005 with the entire organization of Strathmore University, at first it wasn't received with much joy and expectation, because the way we were thinking, the team that I put together and the way we were thinking about the business school was not the way the universities have been structured after the colonial system of the British education system. I took an American perspective, and it's still a battle up to today, but at least now the business is more than 15 years going. And we do business management. That's number one. What was the innovation about that? I say that we set up the Institute of Healthcare Management, Systems and Management. So we do healthcare analysis from a business perspective. We have a number of programs in managing healthcare business. We have an MBA in healthcare business, and we have about 25 PhD students in the area of healthcare management systems and research. And we have developed both hybrid, online, and face-to-face executive programs for leadership in healthcare business. And I can tell you that since that was done in 2007, we already have trained most of the healthcare leaders, both public and private, in the country. And now we have opened several centers across Eastern Africa. The latest one we are helping set up is the Addis Business School, where we are going to put all our executive programs. We won't charge them anything. We will only take our administrative fee, but we will give them all our programs. What guides us? That we must give wisdom, the wisdom of the local. So we don't want to imitate what is in Wharton, what is in Harvard, what is in Yale Business School, what is in New York University, what's in the Indian Institute of Management, institutions which we have partnerships with. We don't want to copy the South African model, the UCT model, and the Gordon Institute of Business Science model. We have very many things alike. We think that it's about applying that wisdom to our local setting. And that is why I also was part of the founding team of the Association of African Business Schools, to enable us understand how to localize the case studies, how to drive case studies that speak to the entrepreneurship, to the leaders, and to the market here in my country, in Kenya, but also in Eastern Africa. And now we also have programs in several other countries in Africa. But the first thing we always do is wisdom. Drive the knowledge that is there in every part of the world towards transforming the local scenario, not to try and impose a system from outside. And then we try to do it with excellence. And we try to advance the latest research and applied research, for that matter, which you will see in a short while. We are in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Rwanda. We have programs in Ghana. We have worked with the UG, University of Ghana. We have worked with the University of Zambia. We have worked with the UCT. We work a lot with Gibbs in South Africa. And we've worked a lot with the University of Dar es Salaam. And we've tried to set up systems there. And what I find in all that experience is that in South Africa, they already have most of these programs. But in the other universities across Africa, like the Bloomberg Media Initiative for Finance and Business Journalists, we find that our institutions are not flexible enough to be entrepreneurial, to start speaking to designing programs that feed into society for the sake of business, making people understand business, making people have opportunities for business, understanding data and statistics from a practical business perspective, structuring investment proposals, and so on and so forth. We also have the Institute of Public Policy, and we are members of EFMD and AACSB, and we've delayed our accreditation simply because we wanted to get it right. We were not getting accreditation to look good to the West. We were getting accreditation to look good to Africans. Then, if anybody wants to come to Africa, we would like to be the best school for business. We would like to give you the best network for business, and healthcare management and public policy, which we see are fundamental for the building of a better economic environment. And because of that, one of the results is that Kenya now is going up the ladder of global doing business ranking in the world. When we started this idea of interlinking these areas, Kenya was ranked number 131 in the world in terms of doing business, global doing business indicators. Now it's now it is around number 51 or 59. I can't remember what it is right now. And that was that entrepreneurship. With regard to the healthcare management, what happened is that now we are driving healthcare institutions to understand that the information and the knowledge people have in healthcare businesses, leading healthcare businesses, is not managerial. It is technical healthcare capability in all the sciences of healthcare, in medicine. And therefore, they are not probably capable of driving policy because they don't know policy. And they are not able to run businesses and institutions as a business opportunity. And so again, we have driven most of the reorganization and systems management for most hospitals in the country, starting with the leading public hospitals, going all the way to the leading private hospitals. And now we are going to the counties. Right now, I have my team already training at the county level to see how we can make sure that although healthcare is a service, it is also a business from the point of view of doing it well from a management systems perspective. And we try to keep all the guidelines given by AACSB and EFMD and BAHM, Business School Alliance for Health Management. That's a US accrediting body. We are already members, the first in Africa. And NASPA, which is an American association of schools of public policy and administration. So as you can see, we started by being entrepreneurial from inside. Then we inserted it into our programs. First, the undergraduate program. Secondly, the postgraduate programs, innovation and incubator hubs, and the Strathmore Enterprise Development Center. And we have 7 master's programs and 2 PhD programs that incorporate all. We have approximately 120 PhD students. And one of the things that is so important at the PhD level and at the master's level is that the projects the masters do have a significant impact in the institutions our students work in. And for our PhD, we gave them a higher angle, which was for any research and paperwork done. That paper is not going to be seen as an important publication in the journals that are well run if it is not going to be of impact to our society. So service to society becomes a fundamental issue. Now I'll go ahead and say what we do at the undergraduate level and then at postgraduate level. So we have 3 programs. One is the Bachelor of Commerce, where most of the entrepreneurship is. But we also have a financial services program. How do you run businesses for a majority of population, which is in the small or micro, small, and medium enterprise area? So we cannot continue with the policy structure of banks that was set up for European or American environments, and now Chinese. We have to train our MSMEs to understand what banking is and how to use banking services now that we have a telecommunication connection between 80% of our population and the banks through our telecommunications company, Safaricom, and other telecommunication companies. But our people don't know how to use banking facilities, how to use banking opportunities. When the government goes out there and gives funds to people for youth entrepreneurship, for women's programs in finance and banking and entrepreneurship loans and credit, now we have just set up a credit guarantee scheme for SMEs. When the government came up with a policy of 40% of the government products and services are going to come from locals, well, there were no locals to pick them up, except a few corrupt individuals who registered 400 companies from which they could serve the government on the basis of being SMEs. So we still have a large proportion of our population unaware of how to link to the banking and financial sector. And that's why we insert practical entrepreneurship units in the financial services as well. And now as well, together with a former professor of the University of Ghana, we are setting up an entrepreneurial program on supply chain strategies for Africa, aimed at the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So we are already doing a few PhDs in the program to get the people to get to know the industry, and we are working in partnership with Kuehne+Nagel. Kuehne+Nagel is one of the world's largest operators in supply chain and logistics. So we are working with them to integrate jobs and skills and case studies and content and training personnel to get ourselves at a global level, but also to get information from an African perspective. So critical thinking becomes a crucial thing, not copy, critical thinking. So one of my students has set up Perfect, which is an online e-commerce gift shop. By the time they finished their undergraduate, they were already earning at least $10,000 per month while still in school for third year and fourth year before they finished. And now they are a well-established business across the country. And since e-commerce, there are very many people who use them. So they keep growing. That was critical thinking because that business started 6 years ago. And I have several other businesses I can talk to you about, all right? We build in ethics and social responsibility for business. So social impact becomes a very important part. And one phrase is the main thing we teach. And that is, whatever you do, give people jobs, and create wealth with an ethical underlying principle based on research, based on innovation, and we are going to put the network of ethical businesses around you. And that's what we do. So we then group the students and they pitch business ideas. And now we have what we call, and this is very crucial. And by the way, if you can stop me, stop me. One of the things we do is we demand from our undergraduate students, all of them, all the 3,500 of them. Sorry, that's a big number, 2,500 of them, 3,500 including the postgraduate. So 2,500 of them. We group them for community work and demand at least 400 hours of community work. Now, what does that community work mean? In groups of 5 to 7, they go out to a community in the society and they serve them for free. Whether it's a needy orphan group, whether it is a hospital. But most of all, what we tell them is, why don't you go to the fishing industry of the young women along the coastal line and populations that don't know how to turn fishing into a business. And then we've partnered to develop action-based entrepreneurship programs. And our industrial attachment is aimed at coming out with a proposal on how to improve the business. This is over and above the community outreach. Our students have to work individually in a particular company and then come together to see how they can solve industrial problems. Our students have been started the HALT Prize in Africa and are now leading the HALT Prize in Africa and Eastern Africa and the MENA region. And they are already winning global prizes. And the leadership of that group of the HALT Prize is significantly placed at the global level. We have 10% now of our students going into business immediately, especially agribusiness. That's our innovation and incubation hub, where we put in, it's called IBIS Africa, and the research part is iLab Africa, and we put mentors, we put funding areas, we put testing networks, startups. We have over 300 startups. We do everything in e-commerce, media, arts, photography, agribusiness, website, software development. These are the companies that I would like to say we are very proud of. These are the partners we have there, and we are building them. We also have a climate program, and we also develop agribusiness export programs. So these are some of our programs that we have. One thing that, and this is the final thing I'm saying, these pictures show about 6 different banks that bring their SMEs into the business school. We network them, we show them how to grow, we show them how to manage their finances. And in these pictures are the graduates of those programs. And what tends to happen is that for every 100 we take, we now have more than 600. The credit level increases and the loan repayment increases, and that's why they come to us. And we do that under the Strathmore Entrepreneurship Development Center. And I have finished because really all the rest is just about that collaboration. And there is the Strathmore Business School entrance in Nairobi. You're all welcome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Njenga. I think your presentation was very insightful. I've had the opportunity of being at Strathmore, and I can attest to how the campus looks like, and also the rigorous nature of the programming and the iLab and IBIS Africa. Maybe I could start with the questions. I have just one quickly before the others come in, and this is how the questions will go. If participants, if you can either raise your hand, or you can post your question in the chat box, and then facilitators can help us to get the questions, and then we can ask Dr. Njenga. So, Dr. Njenga, quickly, you spoke about the opportunity for the students to engage with businesses, especially in the countryside, where in the communities where they're able to serve them for free. I would like to know whether what the nature of the programming is like, whether they do immerse in terms of going to live in these places and understand the way they do business, the cultural nuances around doing business, so that in co-creating solutions, I'm hoping that is how it is done. In co-creating solutions, you're able to incorporate some of the assets that they have within the community, the nuances around culture and the indigenous knowledge as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Yo. So how they do it is, for us, we have a supervisor, and then we have the student groups. The student groups can arrange the way they want to do it, whether it is within the city or in the village. Many times they go to the villages and stay there for more than 2 weeks. What happens is that initially it looks like a very difficult thing to do, and we do it over the holiday session. But we found out that as soon as they landed and start the work of helping the communities, they become very excited about the solutions, right? So software solutions come up, accounting systems and apps come up, opportunities for advising, legal. The latest one was the students set up a legal clinic for the slum dwellers, especially the women groups. And so sometimes they stay, sometimes they go there one-on-one. And it is actually a very free environment. We don't put any rules or regulations. What we say is we need a project. What was the problem and how did you solve the problem? All right. This particular part is about the students' freedom and entrepreneurship spirit. Then finally, the ones who leave the campus and already have their companies, which we have incubated, those ones are amazing. I have one who has just executed a factory for avocado oil. And I am the chairman of that company, and I asked for some shares. I've got a small number of shares, and many of our faculty are doing the same with their students. And they run and chair those companies and help the students grow. So like the one I am chairing, I have 2 plus an NGO, so I have 3. And the one that I like most is the avocado. Both are my students, both got married. They got married and they're running a beautiful company affecting 5,000 farmers. They produce about 500, they run about 500,000 kilograms of avocado in their factory, and that oil is exported.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Njenga. The floor is open, just like I said earlier, for questions. So we are looking at these insights that we are sharing, helping us to be able to identify programs and structures to improve the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Strathmore. and also other institutions.
Or perhaps we can also ask what questions Dr. Njenga has for the audience.
Yes, for the participants or even the organizers.
Yes. One thing that would be very crucial for me is to understand what drives most of the faculty in a university. Is it the idea of publish or perish? Or is it the idea of service to community, of bringing the industry to understand the curriculum and therefore be the first ones to pick the students who graduate from that curriculum? Because one of the things I found out is that many of our universities don't go to the industry to look for solutions of content. Now, for us, you cannot get a program passed by our academic council if you don't demonstrate a market orientation. And that's because the university relies a lot on fees. So if your students are not selected or get employment, then you have a problem. So what we have done is over time designed a very flexible curriculum content delivery that is based on the latest in the industry. Even when COVID came, for instance, within 2 days we were online, all of us, all right? There are parts of the business of the university in general that were a bit tough, but within 2 days, and the master's programs were continuing online, and we've continued. Now we're shifting to a hybrid system. It's a change system. We are being flexible about it. But yeah, you have to be entrepreneurial, and it cost us a lot of energy last year to maintain the same standards and quality, to make sure that our students receive the quality for their employment, to make them acquire the skills without delay. Now, I want to understand from my people in the universities, how do we respond to the environment? How do we respond to the needs of the society and the community around us? Or are we closed inside our own academic world?
Very good question. Are there any takers? So far, we haven't heard from an audience member yet. Maybe this is it. Yeah.
I think maybe if we have somebody take this question from Dr. Njenga, then we can go to those two questions quickly.
Thank you, Doc. I think I wanted to respond to the query Prof made. For us in Valley View, I'm speaking from Valley View University, from the Faculty of Science. For us, Valley View University, we had our e-learning system already up and running, and we had been doing that for the past 5 years, more than 5 years now. However, our biggest challenge was when the COVID hit and we had to go on lockdown. I think within 2 weeks, we had our system up and running. Our challenge was with the regulators, because here we have the license to run face-to-face program. But when we had a challenge and we had to move online, we had that challenge with the regulators, whereby they said because of the kind of license that we had, we had difficulty getting the authorization to move online. Then again, and it's understandable, because here we have an environment where students are at home, not because of the digital divide here in Africa.
That is what they are.
Because of the digital divide, you have students all over. About 40% of your students in an environment where they don't have reliable access to internet to be able to engage successfully with some of the classes. I think that was our biggest challenge. So it's not for us academic institutions, some institutions, innovation and being able to get up to speed. We have that.
It is one of our greatest problems in Africa, yeah. For us, what we did was to go to the telecommunications, the largest telecommunications company, negotiate bandwidth with them, put a wall around that bandwidth and send it to our lecturers and our students, which would cost us $5 every month for both staff and students. So we had to set aside.
Sam Njenga says, how is SBS helping those students who want to venture into agribusiness?
So we have an innovation hub that we've just established. We realized that most of them didn't understand we had the agribusiness center because it was mainly postgraduate. But now we have an innovation hub. It's run by Dr. Simon Wagura, and our job is to do supply chain systems analysis for students to help them know how to invest in agribusiness. We have just done the rice supply chain, the poultry supply chain, and now we have done the grain supply chain in the country. So if you want, Dr. Simon Wagura Nderitu is the boss of that innovation hub. And if you want more information and advice, kindly go see him. Or you can write to me and I'll put in my chat my email. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Njenga. I am Dan Mugambi, University of Embu in Kenya.
Yes.
There's something that I've noted that I want Dr. Njenga to help me understand this.
Yes.
Data shows that 75% of Kenyan SMEs, their mortality rate is 75%. And I see the level of work that Strathmore University is doing. And you have said that the challenge we have in most of the universities is publish or perish. We don't respond to the needs on the ground. So my thinking or my question to you is, how can we multiply the effects of your model? Because Kenya, we have over 60 universities, and I see most of them, they are on the model of publish or perish. We are not responding to the needs of small medium enterprises and a great job. What are your thoughts to reduce these numbers?
Okay, so I'll just go straight to the point. Many people think that public policy, public guidelines, legal structures are written on stone. And that's a big problem in the minds of Kenya because it's still the colonial mind. We copy, we follow the law as it is written, not the spirit of the law. So what we did from the very beginning is that we redefined our university setup. Most universities have what they call the so-called Senate. We told them a Senate cannot run marketing and administration. A Senate can oversee a curriculum, but the Senate cannot understand every science in the university. And if you have a Senate of more than 10 people, then you don't have an effective decision-making tool because a clique takes over the Senate. So the first thing that our universities have to do is redesign the governance and defend it. So when the university commission comes, you defend it, and we did it, okay? And when they come to assess us and try to say we are not like public universities, we defend our positions and we get our accreditation. The second thing is operate with the industry. Let the industry set up a center. In Kenyatta University here in Kenya, I know, Duncan, you know that, they have set up a hospital. Now that hospital is totally distinct from the university. It stands on its own as a legal body. So the first thing is the mind. If the mind is still colonized by a law that does not serve the people, then the first thing is to change that law. And with courage, I'm not talking about things that have not cost us a lot of sleepless nights and fighting and building relationships. We had to do that. But we have leadership that is beholden to a system that they don't even understand what the effect is. So long as you finish the process and you graduate students, you don't care where they go and what value they are to the people. It's a disaster. So we Africans have to understand that the laws and regulations and guidelines we got from the colonialists, which we copied so that we can look like them, need to be remodified for you and my environment. And we have to defend that principle, whatever it means. I mean, we had to defend a multiracial school before independence. Well, that's courage for the first people who started Strathmore. And they got it. And then after that, 4 other schools got it. You don't copy. You study your environment, you do research, you understand how it is, then get an industry partner who finances that project within the business school, within the university, and let that thing stand on its own, give its own legal status, and then put the right people there, not people to eat. University of Nairobi and a number of other public universities tried that, even Makerere. They started the private sector, and then instead of running them effectively, what they did is they found a source for more money than their salaries. And therefore they killed their society and their capacity to bring in entrepreneurship. To multiply, we Africans have to change about our service to society. We have to build our home. But if our problem is to build our pockets, then that is it. Most of us will remain there doing what our colonialists told us, so long as we make a bit of money.
Thank you so much, Dr. Njenga. I feel like the conversation just started, but unfortunately, we need to switch. So thank you so much. We look forward to continuing this conversation this afternoon, because we're going to talk about these models, what you shared with us, how what others can take from it, and what plans people have to close the gaps they have in their own businesses, in their own programs at their universities. So thank you so much. Our next speaker is going to be Dr. Henrietta Onwuegbuzie, who's the Director of MBA programs at Lagos Business School at the Pan-Atlantic University.
All right, thank you, Gordon, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to try to share my screen so that we jump right into it. All right, so thank you for the invitation, and I will very quickly be speaking about exploring successful higher educational institutions model for developing a sustainable entrepreneurship ecosystem. And what I'm going to be talking about really follows very complementarily on what Dr. Njenga was talking about. I'm going to start by speaking about what higher education institutions are doing versus what today's society needs, and then the importance of understanding the essence of entrepreneurship, differentiating entrepreneurship from business ownership or vocational training, because this seems to be a big problem when we see what people who say they're teaching entrepreneurship are actually doing around Africa. And then the issue of ethics as a competitive advantage, not just as a good thing to do, but as a competitive advantage for businesses, as well as understanding the relationship between impact and profit. All this will be under the essence of entrepreneurship. Now, the next major topic will be on designing an effective entrepreneurship curriculum to ensure successful outcomes. And finally, I'll be speaking about promoting intra-African trade through student exchange programs among African business schools. So there are 4 topics I'll be talking about. Now, let's start with what academia or higher educational institutions are doing versus what society needs. So I teach in a business school, and business schools are promoted on how strongly they allow job eligibility, as well as how strongly students get jobs, as well as the speed of attainment of these jobs and the size of the salaries that they make. So in other words, because of this rating, schools are subconsciously focused on giving people a mindset of job seeking, okay? And we know from experience of the rate of unemployment all over Africa that the schools are churning out more job seekers than available jobs. So people come out with the false hope that with a good education they should be able to get jobs, and they find that they're not getting jobs. Okay, so there are more job seekers than available jobs. What this tells us is that what society really needs are more job creators, more impact-driven entrepreneurs who know how to run business by solving problems. Okay? And Africa has many problems and therefore many job creating opportunities. So the question is, how do we go from, just like Dr. Njenga said, okay, Africans have to learn how to do what Africa needs, not just what they inherited from colonial masters. Okay, Africa needs more job creators, And we've got to stop emphasizing job seeking just because that's what international rating bodies look out for. Now, let's look at the essence of entrepreneurship, because if we're going to move from emphasizing job seeking to teaching entrepreneurship, we really need to understand what entrepreneurship is all about. And let's differentiate it from vocational training or being a business owner. So historically, the understanding of entrepreneurship has evolved. Okay, people used to think that entrepreneurship was about owning a business. Okay, but then they realized that business owners just are profit seekers, usually profit seekers, and there's much more to entrepreneurship. So eventually, the understanding evolved to conceiving entrepreneurship as risk taking. And then people realize that, wait a second, it's not only entrepreneurs who take risks, everybody takes risks. The farmer who goes into the forest is taking a risk, he will be bitten by a snake or whatever. Even in the corporates, their decisions are risky because it could either give a positive or a negative outcome. Okay, so people decided that wasn't the essence of entrepreneurship. Then people thought, okay, it's to make money. They said, but everybody makes money, so that definitely cannot be the meaning of entrepreneurship. Now, more recently, that understanding has been distilled, or the understanding of entrepreneurship has become the fact that entrepreneurs are solution providers. So this is where we are today, that we understand that entrepreneurs seek to provide solutions to problems, commercialize, and continuously improve. Okay? So we have people like Jack Ma. Jack Ma is the richest man in China. Right now, he's going through a crisis with the government of China, and they're decimating his business. But we all know that Jack Ma was the greatest businessman in China. And he says, look, real business people make money by solving the social problems of others. And this is I find this definition beautiful because it contradicts the traditional way of understanding entrepreneurship versus social entrepreneurship. People tend to think that impact is when you want to go the non-profit way, when you want to go the charitable way, the foundations, the philanthropic way, while business is for, bare-knuckled businessmen who do things in a very crude way so long as they make money. But here you have one of the richest men in the world telling you that the essence of business is to make money from making a difference. So it sort of chokes that traditional belief that social enterprise is different from entrepreneurship. Because at the end of the day, we're seeing from this point that entrepreneurship is intrinsically social. Okay? If you want to do a non-profit, call it a non-profit. But the fact that you want to make money does not mean you shouldn't make impact. And we'll look more at this relationship. Now, if you look at these people, this first person is Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, who is currently the wealthiest man in the world. The next person is Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft. He was the wealthiest man in the world for the last 18 years. The next person is Jack Ma, we've been talking about. We know Steve Jobs, who died in 2011, was also a very wealthy man. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, was extremely wealthy too, and ranks very highly in Forbes' list of richest men. And of course, Aliko Dangote, the richest man in Africa. Okay. Now, if you look at these 6 people, they have one thing in common. Each of them has provided a solution that is transforming the lives of globally. It's only Dangote here who's only transforming lives in Africa by democratizing the production of cement, which all African countries were importing before, even though we all have the raw materials present in our countries. Okay, so Dangote has significantly reduced the need for importing cement and is currently now trying to stop the shameful practice in Nigeria of importing refined petrol when we are I think we're number 6, the world's 6th greatest producer of petroleum products. Okay, so his refinery, which is the biggest in the world, is going to stop that sharp practice and begin to produce to make sure that refined oil goes from Nigeria to the rest of Africa and the rest of the world. So at the end of the day, if you look at these people, Amazon was founded to help people buy things more conveniently. Microsoft was founded to put a personal computer on every desk. Alibaba was founded to help small businesses be able to buy and sell more conveniently. Apple was founded to help people, make people more creative. Facebook was founded to help people connect more easily. So none of these people went into business for personal wealth, but they all became personally wealthy. to the point where they were the wealthiest in the world, okay, because their solutions were so useful, there was global demand, and they became very rich. So win-win for everybody, okay. I did typing and shorthand in school, but for Microsoft PCs, maybe we'll still be using typing and shorthand, okay. So again, to buttress the point, Richard Branson, one of the richest men in Britain, says the core of entrepreneurship is value creation by providing solutions to the problems and needs of humanity. I repeat, Africa has many problems, which means Africa has many opportunities for business. So why are we producing job seekers? Why are we not producing people with the entrepreneurial mindset who can solve these problems? There is a significant need for a shift in our curriculum. And it's not just an African problem. I recall that when I was in my PhD in the UK, many graduates from the UK, whether master's students or or PhD students, were begging to work for companies free of charge because there were no jobs. The craziness I see here in Nigeria is that graduates are getting paid less than drivers and market women because they're scrambling for whatever is thrown at them. So there's clearly a problem in the way we're educating people in our higher educational institutions. Okay. Jack Ma again insists here that if you want to remain small, solve small problems. If you want to be big, solve big problems. So I was happy to hear Dr. Njenga speak about how they're training people in Strathmore to solve the logistics problems, which will come up as we proceed with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Okay. But there's so many other challenges that will come up. We need to unify taxes, we need to unify regulations, we need lawyers, all of these. African higher educational institutions need to look at these issues and begin to prepare our students to be able to solve these problems. This is where we should be laying emphasis. Right, so what is entrepreneurship? It's really about solving problems, commercializing, and continuously improving these solutions. Okay, so entrepreneurs find solutions to societal problems. And entrepreneurship is a mindset of continuous improvement. So a simple way to understand it is this: entrepreneurs solve problems, add value, and make profits. So if you're not solving a problem, then most likely one is a business owner. Okay, so business owners run businesses similar to others. Inventors create things, are not interested in commercializing. It's the entrepreneur who creates solutions, identifies a problem, looks for the solution, commercializes, makes his money, and continuously improves. I'm saying this in different ways so that it sticks. And a good way to understand the attitude of a business owner and entrepreneur is to look at an example in the paint industry and to show you how it also affects Africa's development. A business owner who sees Mr. A own a paint manufacturing company and make money will go ahead and set up his own and compete on price. So if Mr. A is selling for $50, he will sell his also for, maybe he will try and sell his for $48, and then Mr. A will get angry and bring his price down to $45, and he will bring his price down to $43. So they're competing on price, eroding their margins. But Mr. C could see what's going on, and this is the attitude of a business owner. But Mr. C can decide, you know what? I can make paint that contains fire protection, so my paint will be anti-inflammatory, and therefore decide to sell his paint for $60 because it has added value. And people will buy because they don't want their houses to burn down just because they're trying to save $10. Mr. D, that's how an entrepreneur reacts. Mr. D can decide, okay, I know what Mr. C did to make his paint have fire protection, but I also want my paint to have insect repellents because, we suffer from tropical climates, have problems with insects. But if they use my paint, there will be no need to buy insecticide because the paint, while being pleasant smelling and safe for humans, will repel insects. And he produces his paint, and on his label he puts fire protection and insect repellent, and he decides to sell his paint for $70. I'm sure he will still have premium buyers who want this added value, and he will make more money than Mr. A and B who are competing on price. In fact, Mr. A and B may soon go out of business unless they up their game. Okay, so this is how entrepreneurs behave. Who will make more money? Clearly the man who adds more value. Okay, so value drives profits, and this is why it's important for us to help our students understand, or even our SMEs and big businesses understand why they must go from being business owners who only seek to make money to becoming entrepreneurs who make money from solving problems. and continuously improve on their solutions. Okay? And when an entrepreneur stops being innovative, stops on improving continuously, he can swing back into being a business owner in terms of his actions, and that's not what we want. Okay? So it's really important that we understand that entrepreneurship trainers understand this so that we give the students the right training. So very quickly, I'll speak about 3 types of entrepreneurs. Because we have the majority in the wrong category, and we wanted to move to the right category. The first category are the necessity-driven entrepreneurs. These are those who are trying to survive. They don't contribute much to the economy. They usually suffer social and financial exclusion. They're just trying to make ends meet. Now, when they grow, they could become opportunity-driven entrepreneurs. These ones are simply profit-focused. The increase in personal wealth is their only goal. They don't care about anything else. They see problems as a responsibility of government and non-profits, and they don't contribute much to the economy. Sometimes it's worse still, they can actually act wrongly. For example, selling drugs just because they want to make money and they destroy the lives of the youth, or making sure that things don't work so people can buy their generators, so that, the power issue continues in Africa. So these are, opportunity-driven entrepreneurs who don't care about society. But then you have the third category, the impact-driven entrepreneurs. Yes, they want to make money, but they also see business as a tool to transform society. And so they are mission-driven. So they seek to solve problems, they make a significant contribution to the economy, but they also create more wealth than others, just like we saw in the case of Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg or Dangote. So at the end of the day, these are the kind of entrepreneurs that Africa needs. These are the kind of entrepreneurs we have to be fostering in our educational institutions. Okay. Right. The other thing we need to emphasize is the impact-profit relationship. The more impacts we make, the more profits we make, as Jack Ma has mentioned, when he said, if you want to remain small, solve small problems. If your solution is needed by many people, you will also make a lot more money than if your solution is required by only few people. And this is why the African Continental Free Trade Agreement really provides us with such a huge opportunity. Okay? A market of 1.2 billion people, a combined GDP of almost $3 trillion. That's a huge market and an opportunity to solve problems on a wider scale. Okay, so our curriculum must be preparing our students for these opportunities. Okay, so impact-driven entrepreneurship leads to improve lives, shared prosperity, also profitable and sustainable businesses. I'm sharing this. This is one of my students from class. He owns the biggest online retail store. This is a student from the class where I give not more than $30 on purpose each. And I asked him to start a business that solves a problem and is profitable. Okay. So people are used to solving a problem in a non-profit way. And I say, no, you need to understand that the biggest businesses can be impactful. And so because he spent the money, the capital on food, he had to use what he had, which was website skills, to create this website where he puts the furniture made by roadside artisans, and because it was on a beautiful website, the products were exposed to a wider market. People would otherwise have gone to high-end furniture companies. They would order, he would deliver, and if they liked it, he would then ask them to pay. Now, this business has gone on to become a very big business that serves Africans in the diaspora, because now they don't need to rely on relatives to help them furnish the houses they want to build in Africa. Okay, so this is just a practical example of how you can start a business with little or no money. Right, so, that picture was meant to come after this myth, a little bit of error in organization. So basically, there's a myth that it is money that makes entrepreneurs successful, okay? But the reality is that venture-backed startup failure rate has been increasing. It used to be, for decades, between 75 to 80%, which means that out of every 10 businesses that start, 7 to 8 of them fail. In more recent times, 9 out of 10 businesses fail. And guess what? As I've written here, they are venture-backed, which means that they had cash. So what this tells us is that it's not, the question is why? Why will they fail since they had so much cash available to them? Okay. The point is, it's not money that makes businesses succeed. The most important thing is training. And our forefathers knew this, which is why they had apprenticeship. Pre-colonial times, how were Africans living? Okay. You learned the skill or trade from your family. If your father was a fisherman, a blacksmith, a carpenter, a farmer, a welder, you learned that. And by the time you were a teenager, 12, 13, you were already an expert. By the time you were 18, if you were a man, you could actually get married because you had a skill or trade with which to earn a living and take care of your family. Okay. Then school came, which is not bad, just that it made us forget about our values and our survival mechanisms and just focus on job seeking. The school curriculum and the school system built by the colonialists was meant to prepare us to work in the ministries that they used to siphon the colonies. Unfortunately, to date, we have not changed it much. It is time for Africans to begin to work on the curriculum and change it from an orientation of job seeking to emphasize an orientation of job creation. Now, it doesn't mean that job seeking is bad. I tell my executives or the people on my executive MBA program that, look, if you look at your current jobs as apprenticeship, then you are at an advantage because it means you're preparing to start your own business. You've practiced, you've rehearsed, you've learned in someone else's business. Okay? Don't just go to work every day without that mindset, because any day, anytime, as has happened with the economic crisis in 2016, okay, you can lose your job. During COVID, we saw how within a month, many employers asked their employees to leave because they were not sure of how to pay their salaries. So it's important that we understand that training comes before funding. Okay, the fact that I can afford a plane doesn't mean I can fly it. If I buy one because I can afford it and I try to fly it, I will crash it and kill myself. Okay, the same way for you to learn how to ride a bicycle, you have to come out there and practice, not just listen to the theory or read a book, or to swim, you have to get into the water. So same with business. So very quickly, how do we design an effective entrepreneurship curriculum? It starts with, first and foremost, helping the students understand that they need to relearn a lot of wrong things that they have understood about business, such as needing plenty of money or borrowing from a bank to start a business. So I always read this out to them, that the illiterates of the 21st century are not those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn, because common practice is not best practice. Okay? So the curriculum that we use is a combination of presentations like I'm doing now, case studies to give examples of what others have done in the past, videos and practical assignments, and also guest appearances. So it's very interactive, and it has to be, because as Confucius said, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I know. So my students also actually start a business. So, and I also let them know that they're free to share opposing views and that we're going to be learning from each other. And it's very true. Right. So the course outline is divided into 3 parts. The first part looks at understanding entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial process. So we've spoken about entrepreneurship in great deal. I show them the process, how you see an opportunity, discover an opportunity, by discovering an opportunity to create value or to solve a problem that people are willing to pay for. Then you organize efficient operations, make sure that the people who you've invited to work with you because you can't cope alone are happy and motivated because you communicate, because you are fair in remunerating them. And once your staff are happy, your customers will be happy. And this is where one place where SMEs fail. They overlook their staff and focus only on customers. Unhappy staff cannot give you happy customers. Okay. So once you understand this principle of efficient operations, motivated staff, who will deliver motivated customers, the result is huge profits. And then we discuss the sustainability factors such as leadership, innovation, ethics, and then growth strategies. And then for me, and I always tell them, start small, think big. Yes, you want to be big, but don't expect to be big immediately. Okay, be prepared to start small so you learn as you grow. And so this is the last part of the curriculum, which is meet practice. So we invite entrepreneurs to share their journey. The students also have a chance to see whether what we've been talking about is really relevant in practice or not. Okay, and so they learn from the entrepreneurs' successes and their mistakes, and they confirm the relevance of previous concepts acquired. And then finally, I don't give them exams. I give them very practical assignments, which I'm just to rush through because I know that the next speaker needs to come on. Okay, so I asked them to interview an entrepreneur and ask questions like how he got the idea, what factors led to his success, what mistakes did he make, what impact has he made, and how well is he doing financially, lessons learned from his journey so far. Then the student has to write about their key learning points and recommendations to the entrepreneur. Now, so then they also have, for the full-time MBAs, they have to start a business that solves a problem and also is profitable. So for the executive MBAs have an incentive to start one. It's not compulsory for them because of their work schedules, but they have to start one. And then we organize an entrepreneurship fair where the students have booths and they can, and potential investors come and listen to them, and then decide to invest in their businesses. So all in all, I also ask them to look for alternative exportable solutions. So it's very, very practical, the whole idea, because entrepreneurship is a doing course, not a you don't talk about entrepreneurship, you do it. So grading is also based on class participation, assignments, and so that's it. Now, my final topic: how do we promote intra-African trade through student exchanges in African business schools? Okay, so there's plenty of talk about after European and American the population they are focused on taking advantage of it, and it cannot be that African schools are not preparing our students to take advantage of it. So how do we achieve this? We achieve this by promoting more student exchanges. Now, as we said before, AFTA opens up a market population of 1.2 billion people from 55 member countries with a combined GDP of $2.5 to $3 trillion, making it the world's largest free trade area. Now, just like in the case of the EU, they identified challenges to make AFTA work, from governance guidelines, how do you get unified taxes, legal and regulatory framework issues, how do we resolve inevitable trade disputes, national policies, how do we come up with policies that incentivize intra-African trade, technology, what appropriate technology can we come up with to help efficient equipment inspection, fintech enablers, etc. And of course, infrastructure. We have the absence of infrastructure in some cases and inadequate infrastructure in other cases. Okay, all these challenges, by the way, are business opportunities. Okay, but for me, the biggest challenge is one of trust. When you don't trust yourselves, when people don't trust each other, there's no business that can happen. And that's where academia can play a strong role. Okay, because without trust, even if you solve the other problems, trade will still not happen. Now, how can academia solve this problem? Starting with student exchanges amongst African higher educational institutions. Okay, let's see how we can, with these exchanges, build familiarity, knowledge, and trust amongst peers, because today's youth are tomorrow's leaders. So unfamiliarity leads to fear, lack of trust. We have an exchange program with them, Strathmore Business School. I was surprised that Dr. Njenga didn't say anything about it. But basically, they come from Strathmore Business School for 1 full week, and when they enjoyed themselves so much, they start telling us how they thought that, when they came to Nigeria, they would steal them at the airport, even on the hotel corridors, they would be attacked, but they love it. They enjoy so much that they don't even want to go back. Or they start asking us if we can come to Strathmore to teach them, so they pay us or whatever, okay? So there's a lot of ignorance, and then the negatives are exaggerated and all of that. The only way to overcome this is through the student exchanges, where they can be friends, and as they come out of school, they can form joint ventures that foster intra-African trade. We could also introduce courses on business opportunities in Africa. We can also invite lecturers from different African schools to talk about doing business in their countries, so that people already become used to it. Okay, we can organize conferences, intra-African conferences. We can do African trade missions. As I was writing this point, trade missions, I was thinking, I get invitations from Norway, countries abroad. I've never seen an invitation for an African trade mission. And that's the reason why we have very, very little intra-African trade. Okay, we can also have seminars on this topic. Now, very importantly, also, we need to train people in ethics and values to understand that you gain much more from being ethical and from being values driven. Okay, once you have a great product, and people trust your values, then business is bound to multiply and accelerate. Right. So this is my last slide. And it says the best time to climb an elephant is when it is seated, so that when it rises, you're already on its back. So HEIs, this is a time to prepare our students for that elephant that is about to rise, which is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know how passionate you are about these topics, so it's even it's great that you were able to contain the passion in 30 minutes. But thank you so much, Henrietta. Very, very interesting points there. This idea of value driving profit, exploring entrepreneurships, trust through these exchanges, business ethics as a competitive advantage. I think that's what I was hearing as well. Wonderful points. There are some comments. I know you have to jump onto another event. And so I don't know, maybe we can, and then our next speaker is also here. And we also had a break planned, which is looking a bit tough now, but let's see if we can take some questions by voice. And whilst we do that, I'll read the comment here from William Muriti, and he says, I think the success of entrepreneurial programs teaching is in developing entrepreneurial mindsets.
Absolutely.
As not everyone who joins entrepreneurship courses wants to become an entrepreneur. We must not forget the role of intrapreneurs who work in corporates and SMEs. Universities should no longer train employees, but intrapreneurs. We must not relent in the quest of enriching our students to empower them in achieving their potential. And then he has a question. My question to Dr. Onwuegbuzie, what are the top 5 characteristics that African student entrepreneurs must have to succeed in the African entrepreneurial climate or institutions?
So the very first one is that they must be impact driven. In other words, they must be purpose driven. Okay? They shouldn't just go into business with the mindset of how do I make money? It must be, why am I going into this business? What problem am I solving? Because that question is also what guarantees you a ready market. One of the things I try to make people understand is the difference between ideas and opportunities. An idea is how you think you can solve a problem. The opportunity is only there when people are willing to pay for your solution. Okay, so you need to be willing to test that your idea is actually what the market wants during a feasibility study. Okay, so to avoid the mistake of going from, I have an idea, then write a big business plan about how I'm going to execute it, that's most likely going to fail. When you have an idea, the first thing you have to do is test it in what's called a feasibility study. Okay, get feedback from the market so that you refine that initial idea. You're testing, is this really what the market wants? Okay, or does the market need something else? Rarely will your initial idea be perfect for the market. It will always need to be adjusted accordingly. Okay, so according to what's feedback from customers. Eventually, when you finally get to a point where people are demanding it because this is exactly what they want, you are now ready to scale. That's when you need to write the business plan. Okay. Now, during this process, demand is growing, which means you can't do everything on your own. You may have started on your own. It means you now need to employ people. The next thing you need to learn is the ability to be a leader. When you begin to employ people, your task becomes double. Not just satisfying customers, but motivating your staff. Most people think that they're still on the job of satisfying customers. The minute you forget that people are now with you, you're now leading others, and you don't make the effort to motivate them, that's the beginning of the end of the business. And that's why many SMEs fail within the first 3 years. Okay, staff must be motivated to come along. And then fairness, sense of empathy, kindness, while focusing on the customer. Also care for your staff. If you care for your staff, they care for the business. Okay, so I like to keep things simple, nothing sophisticated, and of course, know your books. Okay, know how to keep your financials. And this is where entrepreneurship training comes in, because apart from understanding the markets, okay, you also help to understand how to care for your staff and also how to keep your books. Because if you don't keep your books, you can't access financing in future. I tell people, you don't need money to start, but you need money to grow. Now, for you to access those funds, the financial institutions want to see your financial track record. So if you haven't kept your books, then you're in trouble. Okay, so those would be the points I would say they should keep in mind. But I think the most important of all the points is to be purpose-driven. Okay, make sure that your business has a purpose for existing, is solving a problem or meeting a need, because that is when it gets to ready markets. I hope I answered your question.
Well, I read on his behalf, so I think you did. Purpose-driven, and among other things, also keep your books. I mean, these are things that it's not that easy to get our brothers and sisters to sort of jump on board this bandwagon. So thank you so much for championing that. I remember hearing about doing good and doing well. I was doing well. I remember hearing this from you from 2009.
The case we put, doing good and doing well. Yes.
You were far ahead of everybody else. Any other question before we let you go?
So somebody says, it's a question from Jerry. He says, I'm particularly interested in the idea of trust, enhancing and making after successful. I want to ask Doctor about the possibility of using a 4IR technology like blockchain to codify trust executable without any central administration. You see, technology serves people. I don't think it can ever replace people. So you can use blockchain. I don't understand blockchain much, but I think you can use it to assist. But we must still train the people. Okay, I'm not a tech expert, but I think that it can work with the training, not replace the training of people. William says, how do we overcome societal hindrances such as get a degree, get employed in a government or company that our society parents have held for a while in Africa? Well, as we have more successful entrepreneurs, people will begin to see that it's not only when you get a job. You're right, that has been prevalent for decades, but now that we're seeing, I mean, my driver earns much more than many graduates, earns twice as much as many graduates, for example. My driver doesn't have more than secondary school education. Okay, so it's ridiculous what's going on. So I think that the more they see successful entrepreneurs, the more that mindset of if you getting a job is the only way forward is erased. It's a transition that will definitely happen.
So I think this is where we it's interesting because I think that in many ways maybe we could have done this all as an all-day session. There's so many points to discuss, so many points to scrutinize and so forth. But thank you so much, Dr. Henrietta.
Thank you.
The director of the MBA program at Lagos Business School, Pan-Atlantic University. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure being with all of you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.
Thank you so much. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So that was our second exemplar model, learning from what is happening on the continent, how universities are structuring their entrepreneurship programs. So without much ado, let me introduce Dr. Sena Agbodjah Agyepong, she's my boss. She is the head of department for business administration at Ashesi University, and she's going to talk to us about how Ashesi does entrepreneurship, teaches entrepreneurship, and engages with its ecosystem.
Yes, please, Prof. Agbodjah. Every time you say she's my boss, I sit back and laugh because we both know who the boss is, right? So if someone who is higher in rank with you calls you their boss, okay, it's all right, we'll make it work.
What you're trying to do is still my boss. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone. I am, so like has been said, my name is Sena, and I'm here with William, who works in the research office at Ashesi, but has done a lot of work in the area of entrepreneurship at Ashesi as well. And so the two of us are going to attempt to walk you through what the entrepreneurship ecosystem at Ashesi looks like. And so we are going to take it from the perspective of what we are doing, a little background, but what we are doing and how we are going about it. So I will speak for 10-15 minutes and then we can take a few questions. So we would talk a little about Ashesi's entrepreneurial journey. So not about the institution, but when it comes to entrepreneurship, how the institution has thought through and has worked through entrepreneurship. We will talk about a theory that defined our intentionality towards entrepreneurship, and then we would tell you how it looks like, so how our ecosystem is structured. And then a key instrument in our ecosystem, which is the Entrepreneurship Center, we'll delve into that a bit, and then we'll be open for Q&A. William has some wonderful pictures to share with us at the end of it as well, so that I think will be great and interesting. So Ashesi's journey. Ashesi's mission is to generate, grow, develop a generation of ethical entrepreneurial leaders across the continents towards this African Renaissance. And so basically what we have had is the institution being intentional about ethics, being intentional about leadership, and being intentional about entrepreneurship. And so by this intentionality, the institution is able to churn out intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs who are able to work in industry, start businesses to transform or to contribute towards the transformation of the continent, and also contribute towards the global, the global landscape, corporate landscape, as workers, entrepreneurs, and then as entrepreneurs as well. So the university was founded in 2002. And 10 years down the line, there were conversations as the university went through arriving at its plan for the next 10 years, that these conversations sort of pointed in the direction of being more intentional about entrepreneurship education. So we actually spent 2 years, from 2013 to 2015, working through this theory, which I'm going to show you in a bit, to help us be very intentional and structure this entrepreneurship ecosystem, which will then help us to even better realize the entrepreneurship aspect of the mission of the university. Now, at that time, we had about 1 out of 25 of our graduates, mostly computer science students and management information systems students, graduates, starting businesses. The business students would end up, or the business graduates will end up typically in industry as entrepreneurs. And so there was a lot of intentionality about bringing the different majors, including engineering, which was going to start in 2015 as well, bringing these together such that they will be able to together, push forward this agenda of ethical entrepreneurial leaders, while focusing on problem solving using entrepreneurship as a tool, using design thinking as a tool, and of course everything else that they are taught in their various disciplines as tools to be what it is that we need them to do. So from 2015 till now, the ecosystem has been running. We started it off with we were lean in our approach, so we practiced what we preach, which is lean startup. And so we started it lean, even though we had the bigger framework, and then we were filling it up as we were going. And this year, we actually established a center to bring all of our entrepreneurship efforts together under one umbrella. So this theory that I speak about is the domains of the entrepreneurship ecosystem as was propounded by Eisenberg, and it looked at the ecosystem from 6 different domains, and what it sought to do was to take each of these domains and talk about what should be considered under each of these domains for the ecosystem. So, for example, under policy, there's concern or related to leadership and government, and there are specific things about leadership and government that should be considered. And then there's financial capital, there's the culture which is propelled by societal norms, by success stories and, talking about these success stories. There's a support bit which is propelled by, providing legal, accounting, professional assistance, making sure that there's infrastructure, and also having non-governmental institutions playing a role. And then there's human capital, which borders on labor and institution structures that are making all of this happen. And then the market, looking at customers, early customers for when we scale as well, and as well networks that can support the ecosystem to grow. So based off of this, we started developing bits in each of the places, developing our ecosystem. And so I'm going to describe our ecosystem along these lines, and I'm going to take them one after the other. So from the policy perspective, this is how we look like. Ashesi's mission is entrepreneurial, of course, and intrapreneurial, ethical entrepreneurial leaders. And so grounded in the mission of the university itself is this commitment towards entrepreneurship and the support for entrepreneurship. Now, there's also other things that we benefited from, or I'd say the ecosystem benefited from. Ashesi's brand globally, and the goodwill that the university had been able to harness from foundations through partnerships and people who were willing to work with the institution. Ashesi has the Ashesi University Foundation in Seattle, and basically that institution in itself helped to promote what it is that we were doing in different angles, from different perspectives, to help us do what it is that we do. And then, of course, is the commitment to this Pan-African Renaissance, the future of global Africa, positioning it, repositioning it, and the university itself having this drive, governments on the continent moving more towards this drive, and Africans globally also moving more towards this drive. That in itself helped position us. And then a national emphasis on support for youth entrepreneurship. The governments of Ghana and, of course, other countries on the continent have propelled entrepreneurship. So from the policy perspective, that's leadership and government, these are the kinds of supports that we relied on to be able to arrive at our ecosystem. Now, on finance, looking at availability and the general landscape. One of the things we started was an enterprise fund. We call it the Ashesi Enterprise Fund, the AEF. And it's funded by Ashesi University, the MasterCard Foundation, individuals, corporate institutions. And this we started actually in 2015. So this fund has been in existence since then. And we've been having these institutions, individuals, foundations, etc., support entrepreneurship on campus, both undergraduates and graduates, through this fund. There's also an outreach and experiential programs outfit that sits in the office of the Dean of Students. And they also have been able to support entrepreneurship through the Ford Foundation Fund that they've been running for six or so years now, and also some support from MasterCard Foundation. Now, what we offer our students and graduate entrepreneurs is a mix of grants and loans. Grants because very early stage, as we do, idea stage, and helping them think through this using design thinking principles and other problem solving tools, we realize that they need grants to be able to explore, to test, to validate. And then when they arrive at a business model that works, then they'll be in a position to look at debt. And so that is the mix that we give them. We have a bigger grants portfolio. And then there's also the need for seed funding for some of them. Now, currently what we are doing is connecting them to angel investors, VCs, etc., outside in the larger ecosystem space, because we will need fund management within our system to be able to provide seed funding internally. And we are not there yet, but it's something on the drawing board. And that is what I mean by we have been progressively elaborating our plan and delivering it on that front, knowing where it is that we want to get to, but doing it little by little based on what it is that we have going on around us. On the issue of culture, stories and norms, there's been a number of things that we have done there as well. So for example, we capture our stories. So we do for those of you who've visited Ashesi's website a lot, you see that we celebrate our people, right? We celebrate our students who started businesses, we celebrate our alumni who started businesses, we celebrate faculty and staff who started businesses, and anyone in the Ashesi community who started businesses. We celebrate them. We put them on the website, we put them on our social media platforms, basically to tell our story, because that story then creates a certain buzz internally and externally, and that keeps us going, and that creates this culture that we talk about. Now, the various efforts on campus as well have, annually they will come up with reports, etc., that are shared with the relevant stakeholders, and that it itself does support entrepreneurship. And then we are very intentional about structuring classes that promote entrepreneurship. So, for example, in 2015, when we realized that most of our businesses are coming from the technical areas and they were not getting a lot of entrepreneurship education, what we did was to start this core first year course called the Foundation of Design and Entrepreneurship, so FDE, that every student on campus, once you enroll into Ashesi, you actually run through this year-long entrepreneurship course. And what we've realized over the years is that it positions the students and it gives them this opportunity to hone this entrepreneurial mindset, and that in itself gets them to think, view, translate. For everything that they do, they look at it from this perspective, and that has also promoted the culture. We have other courses like our creative and research internship and entrepreneurship courses. We have entrepreneurship capstones, software engineering, e-commerce, etc., and some courses in engineering as well, which looks at supporting students to get started so that they can move into developing enterprise. So all of these things create this buzz, and we haven't been doing it alone. For example, our career services has been very instrumental in positioning entrepreneurship as a viable career option for our students, and that in itself has contributed to this buzz. And so we've been very intentional about all of this, the structure, the norms, what is okay, the stories that we tell out there, etc., and that has helped to create this culture. Now, when it comes to support, so infrastructure, professionals, and institutions, there's a lot that we are doing in this area. So, for example, on campus we have spaces. There's there's a center. The Entrepreneurship Center has a building, and I say this because I'm very passionate about it and very excited by it. There's a student center that provides opportunity for student businesses to display their wares and to organize events that promote entrepreneurship. We have labs like the Fab Lab, the Fabrication Lab, the Design Lab, that provides the needed tools for students to be able to, try things, build things. So design thinking, design making, combining all of these things and coming up with innovative solutions. Now, the road to our campus hasn't been great. For those who have traveled it, it still is, quite the hurdle to battle with. But we've tried to manage that by, organizing events off campus, going virtual with a lot of our events, especially once COVID hit, taking students out. So we do a lot of moving ourselves out of campus and exposing ourselves to, what is off campus, and providing support for students to travel off campus to be able to do what they need to do off campus. And as well, providing support for people who need to come into campus so that, we are able to manage that. Moving forward, a couple of things. Is it okay to have like an entrepreneurship minor, for example? Is it a direction that the university wants to move in? Conversations ongoing. A graduate program, for example, would that help, aid anything? Conversations ongoing. And I brought these things to highlight the fact that, when we got started, we started from a certain point and we've been growing and we still see room to grow. And so this, in my opinion, and actually the opinion of most of my colleagues on campus, is not like a, fix it and drop it and make it work, but you need to, work through the works and help support, structure, remove, add on, etc. as you go on. We do a lot of networking and collaboration as well. with professionals in the larger ecosystem, and we have a pretty strong connection with our alumni who come in to serve as professional consultants, advisors, mentors, coaches, etc. And so by making this connection, we not only expose the current students to what's going on out there, but we get alumni to also connect. And we all know the benefits of alumni connecting with the university and supporting the university. Like I've said already, the academic departments are also very instrumental by coming up with courses and developing various courses that support what we do. So for example, the fourth session of our leadership seminar series actually focuses on projects that support social entrepreneurship, the engineering projects also that at two levels, at the first year and then I think in the third year or the final year, the engineering students undertake these projects that also help them to come up with solutions that can feed either into the mainstream entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, or other kinds of models that we can run. Career services I've mentioned, the engineering design team, the outreach and experiential programs. So you can tell that on campus, it's a very collective effort. And that is because we have established this culture. We have decided that this is the norm and we are all sort of working towards it. And our thinking is not that we want everyone to just start a business, but we are thinking in terms of entrepreneurship to enhance the employability of our students and entrepreneurship to have them start businesses, right? It's all the same entrepreneurial mindset. And so the focus is actually getting this mindset done and started and going. We have other institutional partnerships that help or provide opportunities for our students to connect with the external environment, and also the Entrepreneurship Center through events, programs, initiatives, etc. Supports entrepreneurship on campus. Now, when it comes to labor and institutions, we have an experienced faculty base. We have staff and alumni who are very well connected, and we have this amazing group of people that we love to call friends of Ashesi, from global networks, foundations, organizations, individuals, African institutions who connect with us and support financially, professionally, coming with technical expertise, coaching services, mentorship, advisors. They serve as facilitators at our various events and all of that. So this connection with industry, this connection with the larger entrepreneurship ecosystem, this connection with the investment community, this connection with foundations, etc., that gives grants, all of that. I'd say that these connections keep us, they are like our lifeline, that's where our blood comes from. These connections help. And the fact that the institution itself is well positioned helps, to make these connections, it just helps us to blossom. And so, yeah. And then we have customers and networks, which is the market bit, which is the last part of it. So that in itself is basically us looking within. So Ashesi community is a customer, but we don't focus on just the community. We look at other communities outside Ashesi, like Brekusu Township, where we are. We look at Ghana, Africa, the globe. And so we have businesses that have gone beyond, far and beyond, across multiple African countries and even outside of the continent. We have the foundation that supports, Ashesi Foundation, that supports all our efforts as well. We've had a lot of funding support and technical assistance that have come from members of boards and other people on the foundation. And so we have cases where the players in the ecosystem are the foundation will reach out to us and ask us to support in various efforts that they are undertaking as well. And then by that, they get to know what we are doing, so they know how to position us, and together we are able to do what it is that we need to do. We have opportunities across borders in the continent, and so some of our startups actually get the opportunity to start from multiple home countries, which is great. And then there's all the networks, apologies for that typo, within Africa, Ghana, and indeed the global entrepreneurship ecosystem. Pardon that typo. So all of this we were doing, and like going on, you see that we are doing like so many things. So at a point, we realized that there was just too many things going on. And so in 2019, we commissioned a project which Prof. Agbodjah led to curate all of the things that we are doing. And from that information, we put all of this into the entrepreneurship, into a structure that we are calling the Entrepreneurship Center, to be able to sort of bring things together, avoid duplication of efforts, and have a common target and goal and work towards this target and goal. So this is how our center is structured. We have a center board. Our provost sits on the board. I sit on the board. Prof. Agbodjah sits on the board, and we have two external people, Mr. Reggie Brown, who is with the foundation, and Mr. Patrick Quanson, who is an alumni and works in industry in Ghana. He's an entrepreneur, actually, and does a lot of work with entrepreneurs and starts initiatives in his own organization as well. And so that is the board, and it's supported by the manager of the Entrepreneurship Center and the finance controller of the Entrepreneurship Center. And that is William on the call with me, actually. The faculty lead, which is it's rotational, currently is Prof. Gordon Agbodjah. Apologies. And we have graduate programs, we are calling them the alumni programs. We have the training across the curriculum, which is the undergraduate programs, and we have some efforts that cross these two. So it's open to students and alumni. And then, of course, there's a center staff, manager, Dr. Abna Engman, coordinators, an M&E person, a communications person, mentors, advisors, coaches, officers, etc., who support this big, structure that I have explained. And the next slide is actually going to give you a closer look at what it is. So across, and I love this one because then it gives you a very simple picture from year 1 to year 4, and then when they graduate, this is how things are structured for students. And so students see this, they know what is available to them, they know which ones are courses, which are all these are courses. These are support structures. And then we have the Ashesi Venture Incubator, which is for alumni ventures as well. And then the AEF is the funding bit. And so these are some of our outputs. We have actually supported in excess of 150, I nearly said 1,000, we shall get there, 150 ventures that have started, and we have more than 50 that are moving from startup and are looking at scaling up. And so we know from these outputs that from the entrepreneurship perspective, what we are doing is working. And then as well, with the feedback that we get from the career services related to how our graduates are doing on the job, we also get very good feedback on the entrepreneurship aspects. And so we are doing well, but we are always taking feedback and looking for ways in which we can improve and enhance, what it is that we do. So thank you very much. I know I rushed through this a bit, but thank you very much. And I am happy to answer questions for the next 10-15 minutes. Thank you so much.
There's a question in the chat. Are there successful projects in startup setup based on University Enclave of Brekusu? What has been the impact so far?
Okay. So I am happy to take that while we give you a few pictures to feast your eyes on. So when the university came to Brekusu, one of the things that we're very concerned about and we're very intentional about is how we actually support businesses in Brekusu, how we actually support the people of Brekusu, how we share what it is that we know and have as an institution with Brekusu. And so the outreach office, and that is actually why the outreach office was set up, the sole purpose, or two purposes. One is to promote experiential learning of students on campus, and two is to engage in this, being very intentional about our community engagement, especially with Brekusu. And so we have students who, through experiential learning, and I mentioned the engineering projects, I mentioned Leadership 4, through these initiatives are able to start projects in Brekusu. And so once they are able to start these projects in Brekusu, they grow these to the point where now, it's a project, it looks like it's working, and then it comes in, and then we help them to develop a business model around it, and then they move beyond Brekusu. So I guess a short answer to your question is that, yes, we have been very intentional about, the impact of the university on Brekusu. We have been very intentional about, how students, what kind of projects students are running in Brekusu. And those range from things related to education, literacy, both English, French, and adult literacy, hygiene, personal hygiene for both male, female youngsters, supporting with homework, supporting with sports, supporting with entrepreneurship for young people. And there's this project Ahote. It's like they promote sanitation in the community, and most of these have actually moved on to become businesses, because then once they try it and it works, we absorb them into one of the instruments and tools that we have on campus, and that helps them to develop a model and move even beyond Brekusu.
I think Sena captured a lot of the information for this question. I put a question in the chat about community immersion and co-creation, so maybe I'll address that if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so that's a question from Yao Edu Jemfi. So in terms of community immersion, there's a 40-hour mandatory learning project that all Ashesi are engaged in. And so that's one aspect of it. And then there's the community, and there's an outreach and experiential programs office that sits under the student life and engagement unit that manages a lot of our social entrepreneurship funds for students. Now, from the organogram that Sena showed for the entrepreneurship center, we see the enterprise aspect of it, right? So the community entrepreneurship lead, that social entrepreneurship column of the entrepreneurship center, works in tandem with the staff member who leads the outreach and experiential programs unit under the student life engagement office. Right, so these two work together to provide students with different outreach and experiential learning programs and outreach type of engagement for students. Right? So that's how we go about it. There's the 40-hour mandatory service learning project that students work on. Then there's the social entrepreneurship unit under the entrepreneurship center that works in tandem with the student life engagement office to provide opportunities for students. I hope that answers your question, Yao.
Thank you very much. It does.
So can I take William's question?
Sure.
Yes.
William Urithi. Okay. So thank you for the compliment. Do we think this is possible for large universities? So, being my my ambitious self, I'll say yes. It is very possible to do in large universities. Actually, the Education Collaborative is embarking on a study which will have us look at the case of entrepreneurship in small universities and large universities and see how we can cross learnings across these two setups. Now, I say yes because I have seen large universities outside of the continent, especially, that have very vibrant entrepreneurship ecosystems running. They have, of course, exponential number of efforts. Even we have all of these, right? And we are very small. They have even more multiple incubators, multiple funding avenues, multiple student clubs and whatnot. And that's one thing that I didn't touch on a lot, and I'm going to touch on. But multiplicity of all of these efforts, so that they can touch different students at different points. It can be structured. I've seen some structure it along like faculties and schools. I am not very much in favor of that because my thinking is that once you do that, then you make it, you create silos, right? And it is sitting within a particular discipline. Whereas entrepreneurship is stronger when it's multidisciplinary. multidisciplinary. And so my recommendation will be have, and University of Cape Coast in Ghana is doing something similar. They are a large university, and I can mention them because I've had a conversation with Professor Bohine, who is driving this, and they are looking at bringing, different efforts on campus together under one umbrella to promote multidisciplinary, entrepreneurship, but in the same effort, spreading it around enough that they are able to reach multiple students. So my long answer, like you can tell, I have very long answers to your question, is that yes, I think it's possible. The part that you need to really figure out well is how to support, because I think our ability to provide students with funding has actually, made a lot of difference in what it is that we do. We give the classes that I mentioned, we actually give students in these classes money to be able to validate their businesses. And so that is a game changer right there. I hope that answers your question.
Hi from Germany, it's Christopher, and I work as a remote teacher to the Burkina Faso Institute of Technology. And first of all, I want to share that it's for me really wonderful to see how Ashesi holistically creates the next generation of entrepreneurs. And I would like to know more about the components of the year-long entrepreneurship course for all students. So, and how do you secure that Ashesi educates and develops the impact-driven entrepreneurs rather than the necessity or the opportunity-driven entrepreneurs?
The first year course, which Prof. Agbodjah is actually the faculty lead on, and so if you permit me to start talking about it and then he can add on, is year long. The first semester, so the focus is problem solving, right? And we look at design thinking and entrepreneurship as tools for problem solving. And so the first semester, what we have the students do is through design thinking. So the first semester is heavy on design thinking. Identify problems within their environment. And so we organize what we call a problem festival and teach the students. So Einstein said, it is said that Einstein said, I didn't hear it, that if he has a minute to solve a problem, he would spend the first 55 seconds on understanding the problem. For once he understands the problem and understands it very well, in the 5 seconds that is remaining, he'll be able to arrive at a solution that will be a perfect fit for the problem. Now, one of the things we realized was that a lot of times people rush into solution without understanding the nuances of the problem, without understanding who is part of the problem and what can be done, right, to improve the position of all the stakeholders who are in the problem space. And so through this problem festival and engaging in design thinking processes using some tools that we have, we are able to help the student, teach them how to focus on a problem, unpack problems so that they can come up with solutions that are very real. Now, once they arrive at the solution, then we move into the second part of it, which is designing a business model based on what it looks like. So we give them, a wide range of either it is profit making or it is social or it is a hybrid in there somewhere. We teach them this, they develop their business models, and then they simulate the business. And that is where we give them. So we give them money to conduct the design exploration, and then we give them money to simulate the business, right? And then by the time they are done with doing this, then they actually are in a position to understand and appreciate what goes into arriving at a business enterprise. And then they move off into their various majors now to explore, what it is that they are interested in exploring. I hope that gives you a good overview, Christopher.
Yeah, thank you very much for clarifying.
Okay.
William Marita's question was the last one.
Okay. And then there is Ahmad D. How is the program set up so students are effective both academically and in their product development? So that is always something that you have to support the students to juggle, and that is the reason why we have all of these support structures. And so I showed this slide, but there were a few typos on it, so I quickly hid it, but please pardon the typos. So this is why we have this full support structure. Now, the reason why we have like the center, in the center we have like the design lab, we have the community entrepreneurship folk, we have a lot of mentors, advisors, professionals, consultants, etc. We organize events, we have career services supporting, we have the outreach program supporting, and then we have, very importantly, some student-led efforts. So like the Ashesi Startup Launchpad, the Business Club, the Agribusiness Club. Now, all of these support structures, this is what keeps the students excelling, because within these support structures are what they need to be able, so they get advice on how to balance, for example. They get advice on how to structure teams that will help them to be able to spread the word and spread the love and spread all of that. They get support on how they can, for example, take advantage of courses, right, to be able to promote or push forward their entrepreneurial agenda. So Kareen, for example, and I'll have William speak to Kareen, is an initiative that came from the Provost Office to specifically provide an avenue where a student can pursue their entrepreneurial agenda and still get a grade point for it. And then there's like the social enterprise class that a student can take their entrepreneurship venture. An agribusiness class, a student can take the entrepreneurship center. The entrepreneurship capstone in the final year is also one of the capstone options. So a student can actually take the entrepreneurship venture there. And so we have structured the system such that depending on what the students' interests are, they actually can provide the needed support, and they can be provided with the needed support and assistance from all the structures that we have available. So William, if you can just speak on Kareen, because I think it's a great initiative.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Sena. So Kareen is the creative and research internship in a major elective. And the reason why this class was started by the Provost Office was, Ashesi has 4 majors that we offer, and there are a number of students who have interests that are outside these majors. Although they are exceptional in their majors, they have interests outside these majors, right? You might have an engineering student who is interested in sculpture or filmmaking, or an engineering or a business, so a computer science student who has a business idea that they want to start work with, an application they built, right? So the Kareen class is an avenue for some of these students to enroll in and work on their project and then get credit for it. For now, the class is only open to students who are in their 2nd and 3rd years, and students can take this class for 2 consecutive semesters, so they have enough time to work on their project. There are some instances where students still need to work on their project after the 2nd semester, so we provide funded work study options for them, and so the students can continue working on their Kareen project post the class. Now, this class has some funding available, and so students are given some grant funding to either grow their business or grow the research they are working on, or the creative interest that they are working on. So this is just a summary of Kareen. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
There's a question that is asking about why the 40 hours is mandatory. And so, you can speak to how that is connected, and it was directed at you. You can speak to how that is connected to Leadership 4 and it's a service-learning requirement for the university, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I put a comment in the chat right now for that question, but I'll just speak briefly on it. So Ashesi has a leadership seminar series. It's a 4-part series, right? And the Leadership 4 seminar series, as part of the class learning goals, students have to immerse themselves in the community and provide support, right? So the service learning project is mandatory because it's a component of the leadership seminar series, right? So it's part of the class's learning outcomes. That answers your.
Thank you very much for that, William. There's a last question, Prof. Agbodjah. I think I can just take that one and then we can wrap up. From Anita. Not sure if this is a repetitive question. The question is, how can we, or how has Ashesi encouraged students to stay on the continent and believe in their entrepreneurship endeavors instead of moving to work abroad? A deep breath, because it's a heavy one, right? Unfortunately, there's been, so this brings me back to a comment that was made during the opening plenary about, decolonization, right? And there's a lot of decolonization that we need to do as educators on the continent. And it ranges from the how we are teaching to the what we are teaching to, teaching students to believe in self, teaching students to believe in their environment, teaching them to believe in what it is that they have. And, being unapologetically African and being themselves. Now, without teaching all of that, along with the technical things that we teach our students, it will be difficult for us to get them to believe in Africa. There's no African dream, there's an African reality. And we need to communicate this African reality. Sometimes I get very passionate when I talk about Africa because, we are the first continent. And now we are being called the last continent. A lot of the things that are being propagated as Western are things that have been taken from historical African literature or occurrences and whatnot. So the onus is actually on us as educators to first know and believe and trust so that we can transfer this belief, knowledge, and trust to the young people that we train. Now, I am all Africa, but I am global as well because it's one humanity, right? And so let us, I love saying this, that if you're called to the table and you're not given a chair, take your chair. Let us teach our young in our universities how to actually make this chair figuratively and how to push people and put their chair at the table and contribute to the conversations that go on. That is the only way that they will know and believe in what it is that is on the continent. And that is one of the things that I love about the university I work with, Ashesi University. And that is the thing that I love about almost all of us in these conversations, because we believe in this Africa that we call home. And so to that question, I would say that I will not take it, and anyone can add on, I will not take it from the perspective of fighting brain drain and preventing people from leaving the continent and all of that. I will take it from the perspective of teaching our young to know the value of being African and teaching them to be unapologetically African in every single thing that they do. Now, once they believe that, no one will tell them to remain on the continent. No one will have to tell them to stay and teach. Take them to the river, right? After you've taught them how to fish, leave them there and they will fish and they would get very good catches for us. So that would be my response to you, Anita, that first we need to be African and we need to be unapologetically African and believe it and transfer this to the young people. And we won't even be having this conversation because they will return. And on the part of Ashesi, what Ashesi is doing, so Ashesi has a liberal arts core, and in there are quite a lot of Africana courses that are positioned to teach students this, that by the end of their Ashesi education, they should know, believe, trust, and be unapologetically African. And so we have incorporated that in our curriculum. Thank you.
Maybe we should take one more question, or maybe Dr. Sena, maybe you can wrap it up, and then we will go to Dr. Barakat. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Agbodjah. So just to say that, for us to be able to realize this dream, this African reality, like I love to call it, we need to equip our young with, the requisite skills, the knowledge, the belief in self, and all of these. And I believe in entrepreneurship education being a tool because it helps to position us as both intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs. And so we get to start our businesses, and in the same vein, when we are employed, we actually make stellar employees. And so I am happy to share. I am happy to learn. Like I've said, Ashesi is always learning. We are always growing. And so it will be great to engage in this conversation and see how, we can continue to learn from each other, see how we can continue to support each other. Not only the higher educational institutions, because like I said earlier, that connection is very important. That connection with the external, the industry, professionals, incubators, accelerators, foundations, etc. That connection is very essential. So together we can all work. So let's collaboratively work towards, entrepreneurship education with a lot of passion. And finally, and then I'm done, is that while we are doing all of this, let's channel our entrepreneurship towards Africa's Agenda 2063 goals. And let's look at how all of these things that we are doing can actually help the continent to be able to achieve these goals that we've set for ourselves for 2063. So thank you so much for the platform to share and to engage on something that I'm very passionate about. And thank you so much, William, for the support. Always the two are very grateful.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sena Agbodjah Agyepong, the head of Department for Business Administration, Ashesi University. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your creativity, and your passion. Most appreciated.
I was saying that in the meantime, Dr. Njenga can make the point that he wanted to make earlier.
Sure.
I didn't want to make a point because Sena is so vibrant and extremely articulate. And I think she has a fantastic passion for the growth of businesses in Africa. I sometimes don't share that passion. I'll tell you why. One of the major issues in one of the businesses that I run, which is a company secretarial registrar company that designs solutions, online solutions for annual general meetings, is actually run and owned in part by one of our students who immediately did his public policy. He's a lawyer, but decided to go into business entrepreneurship. And last year, we had to combine shareholders from across the globe. So we had shareholders from France, from Switzerland, from the US, from England, and also from the last corner of South Africa and Kenya. We are talking about citizens who have invested in a public telecommunication company. And having an annual general meeting that is online, you have to try and speak to all cultures and all investors if we want an open market system in Africa. But then, does that mean that we don't defend the African setups? No. We have to create an environment in which we design things with the latest models, and that can come from anywhere in the world. Our M-Pesa money platform that has here in Kenya that has spread right across the whole world, our loan system and cash borrowing systems online, some of which have been designed here in Strathmore, are ways in which we have to, are businesses that have to remind us that we are playing in a global space. Another example, when we helped a particular company start up value addition in avocado, one of the things we realized is we have to set up a company in Europe. Why? Because we want to manage the trading of the vast majority of the oils in Europe, rather than allowing another company own your market structure or distribution system abroad. So while I love the fact that we have such a great opportunity in Africa, I also love the great fact that we are playing in a global environment, and we have to be like any other player from Europe, United States investing in Africa. We too have to invest in China, we have to invest in Europe, we have to invest in the United States of America. And it is in that particular discussion that we begin to understand how to negotiate our policies, negotiate our business opportunities and entrepreneurship. And that is why, if I may, one of the things that we put as a pillar for our entrepreneurship programs, and all our programs anyway, is internationalization. You must learn how to include every brother and sister in this world in your modeling. Now, we have a lot of work to do in Africa. We have to grow our intra-African trade. We have the ACFTA, we have the AU vision. Probably, financially speaking and capital-wise, the market systems that will help us are global. Machine making, markets for advanced organic products, managing our land systems, managing our mechanical supply chain systems. Before the Africans learn all the articulate skills for running factories efficiently, engineering elements, we need to think globally. And this is a very difficult issue for me because I do have the feelings that Sena has about the way we have been left behind because of our inability to see opportunities, or rather our colonial mind. But we need to move. We need to move. We need to start appreciating that the globe is ours too, like everybody else. Why should Russia trade with Germany? Why should Russia trade with the United States of America? Why should China trade with Eastern Europe? Why can't we do the same? Why do we always think of closing up Africa as if it is self-subsisting away from the rest of the globe? And whereas I know we have a lot of work in Africa, I do wish to help people internationalize and see opportunities across the globe. And that's the point I wanted to make. And therefore, every program in Strathmore, entrepreneurial otherwise, has an element of internationalization. Seeing stock exchange in New York, going to Japan, the Japanese stock exchange. We go to China, Hong Kong, if we can, and if some of the students can pay, because not all the students are able to finance such a experience. But for those who can't, we try to do it within Africa. It's something that is growing. We are very young in this entrepreneurial thinking, but we think that that's the best way to go. Not to close Africa, but to open the minds of Africans and then to open Africa. Thank you.
So our final speaker for today is Dr. Hala Barakat, who is with us. Just a brief background on Dr. Hala Barakat. I think that so in 1998, Hala Barakat graduated from the American University in Cairo with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a minor in economics. From there, she took off her career in international banking and finance, later shifting to production and retailing. Being an entrepreneur herself, she was directly involved in all the ups and downs of the business world. This has enabled her to guide and mentor young entrepreneurs in different fields. Later, she obtained her master's degree in economics in international development from the American University in Cairo in 2016. After graduation, she started providing education for employment training as well as workshops in entrepreneurship and other related fields. Before long, she found out that her long-standing interest in education and entrepreneurship development had grown into a lasting passion to serve this ecosystem. Dr. Hala Barakat, as we know, is the director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the American University in Cairo. Dr. Barakat, are you with us?
Ms. Munye.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Gordon, and good evening, good afternoon. I know the time zones are quite different, so good to see all of you logged in. So thank you so much. So I'm thinking about that question, Dr. Gordon, and my view is we have a place of being very global because at the end of the day, you're looking at businesses that can be able to compete at the global platform. So they are not just African businesses. You're looking at businesses that can be able to export. So one of the things that we do with our medium enterprises, because at Strathmore we have the entire spectrum from the students, the undergraduate students, to the incubators, the ones that are at the startup level, the small enterprises, the medium enterprises. So we have the entire spectrum. So one of the things that we do is organize for them international trips for them to get that exposure. And we have also been working with ITC, International Trade Center, for them to embed global standards in terms of the agriculture, mainly for the agripreneurs, in terms of agriculture, for them to be able to export at the global platform. So there is a place of us being global, but there's also a place of utilizing the African market, and the African market is huge. It is very interesting that you realize that a lot of our markets in Africa, we are importing foodstuff from outside of Africa. Yet that foodstuff is available in the next country next door, but we are not exporting to each other. So yes, we are looking outward. I'm a believer in looking outward, but even as we go outward, can we supply this huge market called Africa? Yeah. So if there's no point of us importing wheat from Russia, is there an African country that can be able to do that? There's no point in having some of the West African countries importing milk, the powdered milk from out there. We have a lot of milk in most of these countries. So as we go outside, we also look internally. So we are not giving up one for the other. So I believe there's a place for all those. But our standards then must be at the global level, so that as we compete, we are competing at the same level and our products are not inferior. So whether it's our flowers, whether it's our products that we are manufacturing, they are not inferior. And we have the capacity. So if I was to give you the example of Kenya, when COVID hit, we used to import the PPEs that are used in hospitals. So we used to import all of them from out there. But then COVID hit and the travel was not happening, the flights were not coming. And so we had to start manufacturing PPEs. Currently, Kenya is manufacturing PPEs, for the doctors, whether it is the gowns that they are wearing and all those kind of things, something that we were not doing. And we are manufacturing it at the global standards. So even as we get out of this, we have an opportunity for us to promote our manufacturing sector, for it to grow and also be able to export to the global level. So we have an opportunity for both of them, Dr. Gordon. That's my view.
Thank you very much. You took the middle ground. Wise woman. But it is true. It is true. I mean, I think you made some really strong points. And just to add on to that, Dr. Njenga, I think this mentioned, following up to what you were saying, and he says, should we start entrepreneurship right from first year? That was William's question. Okay. I think that was, I can't remember which William. Well, Dr. Njenga, you can put voice to it if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. No, William asked a question, why don't we start? And it has also been copied to me by Janet Foy. I am a believer in start early and fail fast. Can we start students on entrepreneurship in their first year, flip learning instead of the fourth year? Are we comfortable with students dropping out of formal university? Yeah, you see, William and all the team here, there are outliers like Alexander the Great, who had to suddenly lead the Macedonian army at the age of 18 when his father Philip II died. And we have Joan of Arc, I recall very well, in the 16th century France. The thing is, in universities, we are talking about many students. So if you want to get a big cohort, you have to sort of get a certain average of the students you have. Outliers are there, and we should have systems that support outliers. But that takes faculty's capability for, say, about 100 students, and focuses on one to help that one achieve their greatest. Outliers are there, I would suggest that our universities rather think we want as many entrepreneurs out there as possible, well-formed, structured. Then outliers means that these people know how to structure financing. They have a parent or somebody to support them through structuring shareholding. They know operations management. They know how to set up a team. They know how to lead a team. They know how to negotiate financing. They know how to negotiate tools of trade and supply chain systems. Technology can be used as a growth plan, but frankly speaking, that is just a tool. And you can make a business out of a tool. But if I tell you now, start organizing a farm of 1,000 acres or start organizing 1,000 farmers into production, efficient production for a specific market sustainably, then you understand that business requires a lot more introversion. And it is when they are 23 years, 24 years that you can already attach their program to somebody else and see that they can grow slowly. You can help them build the board, the executive team, and so on and so forth. So we think that the average age now, from our experience, of entrepreneurs that can ride the wave of success are about 35 years old. Below that, it's usually a hit and run. You have to walk with them a lot because the hot blood and and the inability to see very far becomes a big issue. But after 35, we have a fantastic platform to build on those entrepreneurs that have shown capability and excitement. Otherwise, it's not bad to be an intrapreneur, that is to go into a business and generate a new idea, an innovative idea inside the business. Yeah, that's what I have to say regarding that question of William. I don't know whether you want me to add anything more regarding that issue.
So why don't we hear from people if you have a question for him?
So here he asked me, are we supposed to have hindsight or not in acknowledging the role that families play within the business context, and which family businesses form an informal entrepreneurial learning? Yeah, you see, well, one of the things we are doing right now is trying to look for somebody to fund a family business center that Eda here is actually designing. And there isn't such a big difference between family businesses and SMEs or corporations. That's the reality. But there are very key elements within family businesses that are distinct from just corporations run as companies with shareholding that does not belong to only family members. Now, what I know is this, and I've experienced it. If a family runs a business, the first thing you must do is that a student who is a first year, for instance, cannot take a significant role in the business. They have to start from the ground. You have to take them to that level of the business where they have to learn what the machine operator does, the cleaner does, the clerk does. They have to come up the ladder of business. And if in that process they give up, then you have to drop them out of the business because they're going to be a liability. Any child who comes into a business without having gone through the ropes of learning what the business is and seeing the entire framework of business and meeting customers without necessarily being given a very special treatment because they belong to the family, those ones who persevere in that tend to become very good successors of their founding fathers. One example is, I don't know whether you know Chandaria Industries or, you know, one of our biggest investors in Mabati rolling mills. Well, when I spoke to him, and this is public because he has made it public, he couldn't give any of his children managerial responsibility in his companies. He actually went to his nephews and nieces to try and identify who can lead in the family, the business. Why? Because, well, let's say when a father has worked so hard and is rich, his children tend to find money easily, and therefore they don't know the value of money. And it is only the third generation when people start thinking, we need to expand this business. Now in Africa, we don't have very good examples of that. Most of the largest business in Kenya in the last 20 years, the big families who got their money either from politics or from great investing have ended up failing because all their children have dissipated the money. We have a very big public company, which is a mall where they have destroyed the entire supermarket system because everybody wants their cash and wants out to enjoy the cash rather than to build the next level of the business. Why? Because they've never really been taught how to start from zero and build up their case as good managers. So, William, my experience, and it's just my opinion, again, there are very few outliers. Most of the people need to start from zero. They need to start from the base. If they can't, then you don't have a businessman. You have an entitled leader who will end up destroying the business. It's better to bring other people into the business, the family business, for that institution to grow into the future sustainably, rather than give it to your family and then have it destroyed within a decade. That's, again, another big experience I've got. Businesses have to expand out of the family at one point or another, because in the family you can't get all the skills and capabilities necessary to run that business successfully. Thank you, William.
It's been a pleasure having you, and for you to share your insights as well. We're very grateful. So we have a hand raised from Karen. Karen, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Yao. So I think the models we have seen and discussed and spoken about are good. I was fortunate to be a part of that model when I studied at Ashesi, and now I find myself in a setting where sometimes I keep asking myself questions. What happens to those who cannot afford universities who can provide that kind of model for them? And I'm just asking questions. Which aspects of these models can we take and implement in, let's say, public universities like the University of Cape Coast, etc., where there are real constraints? And which aspects, if we want to start replicating some of these things, where do we start from? What do we do? Because some of these things you can only do when you have infrastructure, when you have funding, even the governance system, the culture of the people. These are things that are a bit more complex in a slightly larger organization, funded by government, etc. And so I'm not sure if the panel members can speak to some of these issues for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. William, your hand is up. I'm going to get back to you very soon. Gordon, would you want to take that?
It's a difficult question to answer, but I think that it connects with a part of the discussion that we wanted to have today, which is ecosystem interdependencies. So this idea being that even if the university is not highly resourced, perhaps potential partners are, and how you get these initiatives going is to collaborate with industry partners. I mean, we've seen cases where industry partners can collaborate with the university to train people in a certain way, whether it's a specific technical skill or in a specific area, so that it can serve as a feeder for them. We've seen that. So I think one way to do that is to look to see where you can attract resources, but not necessarily, yes, I don't know if I have an answer, but I think those two perspectives are good. One is that it points us to this concept of interdependencies and how maybe we're not doing enough in connecting with the resources in the field, and that we could do more in connecting with industry partners. And then also we're probably not doing enough with mindset,
Karen, you are with the University of Cape Coast now, right?
Yes.
University of Cape Coast is my alma mater.
Okay.
So I studied governance and sustainable development at the then Center for Development Studies, now Institute of Development Studies.
Okay.
I think at the time, here I'm drawing the point about units within the university, not the university itself, making those engagements that Gordon was talking about. Because I know that at the time, the Center for Development Studies had a partnership with, I think, a university in Holland, and then they were teaching the modular model of studies for development, and it was quite intense. But I think University of Cape Coast was the only one that was doing that. So other universities came to learn. So the point I'm driving at is that units within the universities can engage in partnerships that in the area of entrepreneurship that draws out some of these learnings and models, and in that way you can also have your own unique model and your own unique experiences that you can share, because there will be interlinkages and interdependencies, but then you have your own unique model that you can also share. And I know that in Cape Coast, I've always wondered that Cape Coast should have a very unique entrepreneurial environment because of the way the place is set up, the history of the place, and the uniqueness of the environment. So that's what I can add to it, just using my experiences from the now Institute of Development Studies, and also drawing the point that units can seek partnerships that seek to help them, partnerships not just abroad, but even partnerships within. I use my own organization as an example, the Center for Social Innovations. We've had partnerships with universities in Ghana, and we've shared our model of community innovation with them and implemented projects in rural communities. And we've had very interesting model to share in terms of the uniqueness of partnering with a university, whether it's within Ghana or outside Ghana, and then working in rural communities doing immersion. That's why I was asking about for Strathmore and Ashesi, how immersive is the programs that they are, the models that they are exploring, and they also share with us. So that's a bit I can add to.
Dr. Njenga just mentioned, why can I ask those questions? I thought I was just actively thinking and typing as much as I could. But just some take-homes, very interesting perspectives and conversations, especially with exemplars, which are positively driving entrepreneurship innovation in the higher education sector, with also how they form the ecosystems, which is quite a very interesting conversations around it. I had some key things just to point out as an entrepreneurship researcher, as well as practitioner as well, in that sense. One of the things that has really come out, we've got very, very good exemplars, but that is the same thing that we have when we are studying entrepreneurs or we're studying business cases. We go for the positives one or the successful one as opposed to the failures. So the question we need to ask ourselves, is there failures, or can we be able to also have case studies that have failed? we learn a lot from failure, and that's entrepreneurs will tell you they learn a lot from failure as opposed to successes, because successes can be can be very positive, but also failure gives you life lessons. I think we need to also ask that question. The other thing is, what is emerging from this conversation is there is no one size fits all. We can have very good exemplars, but we have to contextualize a lot, because in Africa, what we see is there's a lot of structural hindrances, which is what really affects how we create businesses, how we do that. I have a bone to pick with whatever the World Bank does with where they're doing business, sort of like assessment of Africa, which might not be really a true reflection of how entrepreneurship is structured in these countries and how we do it as when we compare ourselves with people who've got very strong institutions. And I've argued this in my research and papers as well, that we have a very strong informal institutions in Africa, which is successful in its own way, as opposed to just the formalized institutions that we have in Western countries. So we can't have a conversation that is focused on very strong formal institutions without acknowledging that we have also informal institutions. And that's why I was very adamant with what does the role of families, which families have been in business for 100 years, some of them, and some of the success cases we have from Japan, for instance, for 200 years, have been family oriented. So can we also center our learning and education in terms of way that it encourages informal sort of like learning that happens? The other thing is about this notion, I'm quite really looking entrepreneurship from a holistic perspective. So there is the institutional aspect of it, where we talk about institutional entrepreneurship, and this is encompassing also the leaders who really lead this organization. So sometimes it becomes very difficult as employees or lecturers to take an entrepreneurial orientation if that's not something that is embedded from the leadership to whether it's a top-bottom or bottom-top approach that is there. As I say this, we've talked about so much about the education system, but what about policy? What about political entrepreneurship? What about what structures are there? Because we can't really have an ecosystem that is not supportive in terms of policies, and we value politics in Africa quite a lot. What is the role of that in terms of what we do? Dr. Njenga highlighted, sometimes it becomes very we have to defend our position as opposed to being enabled from this perspective of policy and also leadership and that kind of aspect. Finally, as I say this, who is controlling these conversations? If we Africans or African institutions have to lead, I come from a perspective where I'm encouraging a lot of research on Africa, and that's why I centered my research on. And as Africans, are we having research? I'm quite interested to hear about some statistics about until you get to the age of 35, that's when you can really make a lot of decisions in terms of business, and that's when you become very productive. Can we control that conversation? Can we have conversations around that and support it rather than just being very positivism in terms of our approach? Can we really also support that with, and this comes down to researchers who are doing this, can we try build sort of like an argument that is supported in terms of establishing these institutions? Otherwise, we'll get lost with a lot of Western-centric ideologies that really ends up eroding what we really are as Africans in terms of developing these conversations. Lastly is there's a lot of interest from abroad in terms of students coming to learn about Africa and to see the opportunities that are there. So I think it's a very, very interesting times for Africa. We can also embed programs that really we can sell to the world in terms of business and how you can survive from a context that is not really, as not formal institutions or laws that guide people to an extent of prescribing what you really need to do to the letter, as opposed to when people thrive in an environment that really is not supportive in terms of business. Thank you so much. Sorry for taking that time, but I think there's a lot that we can take forward in terms of this conversation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, William. I think these are very insightful. I think the issue about policy is also goes down well, because the eventual once you put all of these together, you discuss, and you've shared all of these perspectives. Without the framework policy that will guide the process, it becomes difficult. And I think that that's what also the collaborative is about, where you gather the data and you gather the insights to be able to engage with policymakers and even contribute to the policy making process. I'm sure that with the hub in East Africa and others across the continent, we can be able to shape the process of policy, especially around, now that we are suffering from the issues of connectivity. If we want the educational collaborative to thrive, and also for universities to engage in interdepartment, interfaculty collaborations without necessarily needing to travel, then you need to address the issue of connectivity. And I think that's something that could be addressed through policy. And I think that's what the collaborative is about, where we have the insights and the data to be able to engage effectively. Thank you very much, William. William, you still have your hand up, so you're going to be confused a bit. I was going to call you again. But yes, thank you very much. We have about 8 minutes to go. We still have the poll, the poll up. We only have about 12 of us who have been able to undertake the poll. It's still less than half. We encourage that those who haven't been able to take the poll, please do. It gives us insight as to how to be able to enhance the programming well. I mean, tomorrow we have another program between 10 to 12 noon GMT, which we'll talk about very soon. But we want to hear maybe one last comment before we do some housekeeping, and then also information for tomorrow. And William made a comment about, or asked a question about who is controlling these conversations. Mm-hmm. I think it's something that will, without engaging further, I would say that we are controlling the conversation. We are having a conversation here on Zoom. And so when we are sharing experiences, so the conversations are being controlled by us within the collaborative and also on the continent. But of course, there are certain constraints that sometimes takes the conversations beyond us and also beyond the continent. But I think that once we have the collaborative to engage further, and especially also having the hubs in the next 5 years, we're going to have about 4 hubs set up in the 4 corridors of the continent. I think in those areas, the conversations, I think, will be controlled within the house, and as much as possible. And then beyond that, we can seek to manage the constraints that we have. Thank you. We are most grateful for you to join us. Thank you very much, Dr. Gordon Agbodjah, and my other co-facilitator, Wahito Munyi, or Eda. And thank you very much, Priscilla, our able assistant who has been with us. Thank you very much to the Education Collaborative folks